a close-up look at independent filmmakers and their works. Your host is Gerald O'Grady.
The filmmaker is Paul Sharits. He was born in Denver. He was the founder of the film program at Antioch College, and he now teaches film at the Center for Media Study at the State University of New York at Buffalo. Wherever experimental work is shown around the world, whether it's at Montreux in Switzerland, or at Heist in Belgium, or the Whitney Museum in New York, his films are shown, and his films are in the collections of most major museums around the world. In the fall, in 1976, the Albright Knox Gallery here in Buffalo is going to accord you a complete retrospective of your work and some of the drawings and compositional forms that we're going to look at in the program. And I think of all the contemporary filmmakers, your work, your films, your movies relate to other contemporary art movements.
Well, I do feel very comfortable in the gallery and the museum context, since my background in college had been studies in visual design, painting, sculpture, and art history, although I don't like to think of my work as coming out of painting, for instance, although it has a certain relationship, certainly, to abstract painting. If I might characterize the work, I suppose it does have more to do with the contemporary art. I think, well, for many years has been constantly searching for valid subjects, testing the boundaries of what it is supposed to represent, since the invention of recording instruments like the camera and cinematography and so forth. Those functions were abandoned in a way by painters and sculptors. But I find myself feeling that there's a crisis in, I cannot accept illusionism without criticizing it somehow within. And so my subject has become actually more the physical qualities of film, and the structuring process of making films.
Right, because ordinarily when we go to a movie or a film, we tend to look for a representational image of someone acting out something, and there's generally an actor involved. And yet your work, people often say, what's happening? And maybe we should look at one of your early works, Nothing, and perhaps you can talk about what's going on. What is the subject here?
Okay, yes. My work is concerned with perceptual responses. So in a sense, the subject becomes the viewer of the work. This is a film wherein the frames are differentiated by solid color, and they're at a rate of speed which cause certain kinds of optical phenomena. The idea of the work is a little difficult to articulate.
Because we're just seeing a few minutes of a 40-minute long film.
Yeah, I should think that the idea of the film would be more available if we would see the entire film, which is 36 minutes long, which we can't. So what I'd like to kind of concentrate on is that in this particular film, there are a few images which set up a certain kind of conceptual context for the work, but the subject here is the film frame itself. There are 24 of them going by each second, and their existence becomes the subject. And of course I'm using rhythms and patterns and so forth that vary throughout the film. In fact, gradually change from a slower rhythm to an increased rhythm. A very definite point in the center of the film is emphasized, and then the whole structure reverses itself. And the theme, there are several themes in the film that also do this on different levels. Some of them representational, the light bulb imagery. There's an image of a chair falling over backwards without any apparent reason, and
but the subject, in a way, is the frame itself, and then elements such as flicker and color and rhythm. In other words, the subject of the film is the material qualities, or the basic elements of celluloid and emulsions and itself.
Yes, there are so many, in my way of thinking, there are so many subjects that it would be rather hard to in a condensed way, enumerate them all, but those are basic to that kind of work. There's, I think, perhaps we can make some of these ideas more clear if I present some slides. This is a series of strips from the film arranged in a manner that allow us to see what was generating some of those optical effects and rhythms. This sketch here on the on the left, we see just a little sketch of a Tibetan mandala. It's a symmetrical meditational device. I tried to, on the right, find a way of mapping that kind of, the mandala is a single image with a symmetrical image. I tried to find a way of modeling that into a time dimension.
Which is at the top.
Yeah, and here's another way of viewing it. From the left to the right, you can see there's very definite center to the film, and there's a progression of colors that inverts. It goes to the center and then inverts. So that's kind of an overall picture of the whole form of the film. The shape of the film itself becomes a subject in a sense. These are some sketches to show a little bit about how I was diagramming the various movements and rhythms and color developments in the film. This shows general overall patterns of movement and frequencies of fade-ins, fade-outs, different kinds of color formations. This is another way of I would actually visualize as if it were a film strip, relative distribution of colors and so forth. This is a few seconds, about 20 seconds actually, drawn in a way that would look somewhat like the film strips that would result from following this kind of a score, if we can call it that. And later work with scoring films that are actually shot on an animation stand, I can make a score and someone else can actually shoot the film knowing how to read the score, which is as if you would read a book, so that you're reading from the top left horizontally to the right and then down. Now, if that were to generate a film and I were to take the strips of that film and hang them, this we're reading horizontally, if I hang the resulting film vertically, I can see here that it will form certain kinds of patterns, let's say obviously it's related to the way paintings are.
That's done with colored pencil on graph paper.
Yeah, this is a study
for... It's a mock-up, as it were. Yeah.
Right, this is a study for what that score would look like if it were what I call a frozen film frame. This is a series of strips that from another film that's related to the film Nothing. This is the first color film I worked with this idea of the film frame. This is another little section of it, and you see the kinds of spatial forms that these temporal progressions...
What you've done there is take the film. This is the film that ordinarily goes through the projector as one strip, and then you've cut it into strips and put them in a grid side by side.
Sure, in a serial arrangement. This might make it a little bit more clear. This is the entire film, Ray Gun Virus, 14 minutes long, put into a serial arrangement of strips. It's sandwiched between plexiglass. This is another film that's symmetrically made, and you can see the kind of, in the center there, that there's a different sort of emphasis than out on the edges.
That's black and white photographs of installations and galleries.
These are pieces that have been exhibited in galleries and museums I continue to work on. So in other words, when I'm planning the film, I'm planning it for the temporal projection of 12 minutes in the case of this film, Touching. And in the spatial format of the frozen film frame, the film sandwiched between plexiglass and...
Yeah, I was interested because, in fact, you, on some of the sketches, you're actually using the 5-line structure of music. I mean, you were actually using musical compositional books, and then you were using graph paper, and you were thinking of it spatially and at the same time in a temporal.
Oh yes, and I think that my background in as a child playing classical music certainly informs the structuring of the work. It's not based on mathematics. It often has that look, but it's a system that I've developed myself. But from the frame to the frozen film frame pieces with the strips, I had become more interested in literalizing the actual film strip, and I'd like to show a film now, Inferential Current, which is a 9-minute long film, that is, the subject is a film strip, 2 film strips superimposed.
How is this made? What is the sound structure in that film?
Well, we're hearing the latter part of the film. It's in 3 parts. It's the word miscellaneous, which has been taken apart into groups mis, cell, lane, eus, and compounded various ways. And we're hearing the last 2 fragments, lane, eus, overlapped and phasing in and out of relationship somewhat in the way that the 2 superimposed film strips are moving at different rates. I'm interested in trying to handle the sound structurally in the same or a related manner to the film, the visual aspect of the film, rather than the sound being an over-narration, as in a travelogue, or synchronous, as in...
Was that shown on multiple screens?
That is a work that's related to another film called Sound Strip, Film Strip, and perhaps we can take a look at some slides. This work is an installation in a museum, and it's 4-screen piece. These are 4 projectors in the middle of the room. The image takes up the entire wall, about 8 feet high, 30 feet wide. The 4 images are turned sideways, and the image is like the one in Inferential Current. It's of a film strip. And here, as they're aligned one after the other, at times they look as though they're one long film strip, like the arrangement is sort of a metaphor of a film strip, and then the subject itself is a film strip with scratches, illusional scratches and sprocket holes. And what I was interested in here is the physical linearity of the film, as in contrast to the flickering pulse of the frame-oriented work, the earlier work.
We can't quite see that these are the kind of 4 screens.
Yeah, this is actually...
As they're being projected on
right. The scale of this is 30 feet wide and 8 feet high, and we're getting cut off on either end, and the image, there's images of film that were rephotographed on a system that I've built specifically for this purpose that will see the entire strip of film. Now, in recent years, this preoccupation with the strip of film as a linear, modulating, flowing element has been interfaced with the earlier concern with the abrupt change from frame to frame into work which is a rephotographing of film frames that, if they were normally projected, would have a flickering effect. So I've kind of compounded, I believe, both systems. And the fourth section of a 20-minute long film I'd like to show now, color sound frames. The sound actually is the sprocket holes. They're in sync with the image. Perhaps we can have that before we discuss it any further.
So when you're conceiving a film, I mean, in your mind, you're thinking of it as going through a projector on a screen as we see ordinary films. At the same time, you're thinking of it as a frozen frame that you can cut up and actually sometimes show in space and within plexiglass. And at the same time, you're, in a way, thinking of it as terms almost of performance, as what you call locational piece. I know you've talked about Frank Lloyd Wright in a democratic space where people can enter in, and so you're actually thinking of it in at least three ways.
Yes, I continue to make films for regular theatrical kind of presentation, films with beginnings and ends, and on the other hand, I see that space is a bit authoritarian in that everyone is directed towards a particular image at a particular time. And the locational works, the works I do in the gallery and the museum context, don't really have a duration, and they don't really place the viewer of the work. The viewer places himself in relationship to the work, and comes and goes at will.
I think we have a set of slides that will
yes, this
show some of the generation of the
slides. We'll see how this last film that we've seen, Color Sound Frames, is related to a gallery piece, which we'll come to in a moment here. These are some scores that are oscillating lines that intersect and create flicker footage. There are 10 drawings here that create a 5-minute long film. This is just 3 of the drawings. Now, so it goes from this drawing stage, and then we have the 5-minute long film. We're seeing here a frozen film frame of it. It's matted a little bit by the TV format, but then I made a film of this, and that would be color sound frames. I also made another film, and it is an installation piece that was first done in a biker gallery in New York, and then was shown in another show of projected light work at the Walker Arts Center last year. Now this again is this format of putting the work into a particular space. The film is on loop projectors, and it doesn't have any specific duration. These go in and out of sync, these images here of film strips, so that there is no concept here of beginning and end. It's just duration. It's a spatial experience, and you locate yourself within it. As
you can actually run them for a month without repeating.
That, yes, yes, the amount of information. However, on the other hand, I would like to make them so that at the immediate moment of seeing them, there is an all-at-once quality to them that is much like the presence one might sense in a painting or a piece of sculpture, a wholeness to it. This shows some of the variations. This is a sketch just to show the variations in the kinds of movements that can occur in this 3-screen format that's similar to the color sound frames film. This film was actually called Synchronous Soundtracks. This is a work that I'm working on now that's silent, oscillation, working with the principle of oscillation, 4-screen work, again, in an environmental context, a locational piece. Now, there's another kind of thing that I'd like to talk about a little bit to work with the idea of stages of developing a work as being the subject of the work. These are some scores, 4 scores. We'll just go through them. But even with some of the distortion that perhaps we'll have with the video, we can see that there's a relationship between these drawings in that they all have a color that's somewhat related. These generated 4 different films that were 5 minutes long, and I projected the variations of overlapping the screens. Now these are flicker works, going back to the earlier work like Nothing. But for the first time I developed them for a locational situation. And these...
This was the piece you did at Art Park in Lewiston this summer.
Yes, this was continuously projected for a couple weeks, and I changed the relationship of the projectors so that the screen overlap would be different. I found that the best format was finally this last one right here.
So as you were watching your own work at Art Park, you began to create a new series of sketches for another work based on that almost.
Yes, first they started out as theoretic sketches. Let's have a look at a couple of those. This one is to explain one of the basic ideas there was the shutter blades in an out-of-phase interfaced relationship.
The shutter blades in the projector?
Yeah, it's kind of, the film is about the shutter blade of a projector abstracted into a whole formal idea involving color, movement, and rhythm and so on. This is another drawing. This is rather schematic and didactic. Now, I'd like to just show rather quickly a series of drawings that are not particularly didactic, but rather a metaphor for the kinds of what I thought would be the variational possibilities of this approach. So we just go through this sequence of slides now. this is from a series of about 50 drawings. And I found it very interesting that in this case I was able to use the final film as a resource or a subject then for a series of drawings which I believe will perhaps inform me of some other direction to go in developing a film concept again. So the process of thinking about the work is not just from the beginning sketches to the film, but has now extended beyond the film back into sketches, and perhaps from those sketches then on into another
in some ways,
modulation.
getting back to the kind of question I raised earlier in the program about what's happening, what's on the screen. In some ways, what's on the screen now and more in this complicated fashion seems to be the process of thought itself, in a way.
Yes, that is the way I think of the work, and that's why I like it to be broken down into different stages so that the different parts of the processes can reflect off of each other and create sort of paradigmatic structure of how an idea can be seen and felt and responded to, developed on different levels.
When the work's kind of shown, you show it from sketch, and then compositionally you project it, you show it in what we call locational arrangements, and people can in a sense follow the trajectory of this kind of interaction of yourself with your own perceptions and of course their perceptions.
Yes, ideally all the work would be seen in a relatively proximate spaces. You'd see the film piece in one room, you'd see sketches, diagrams in another space, and some of the frozen film frames also, so that that would set up a kind of conceptual space rather than one thing being hierarchically superior to another. It's more of a reflective process.
Yep.
So that my hope is that even in limiting myself to the kind of subject that I've decided is valid film subject matter, I have a richness to work with.
Yeah.
Hope.
I think we're out of time. Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you.
Filmmakers is produced in cooperation with Media Study Buffalo and is a videotape production of WNED Buffalo.